Again, it's funny watching these scenes completed, because when we were shooting these, very often it was just William and Tilda. There was nobody else in the scene. They both took a few knocks during this sequence. I think this is also where we really see William's been out in the sun, he's been training, he's really turning into a young man at this point. This portion of the battle, interestingly enough, was done by ILM. So although Aslan and the arrival of the troops here was Rhythm and Hughes, ILM actually did the rest of the backgrounds, and basically as the number of shots grew, so did the number of visual effects facilities, and ILM really did a remarkable job of coming in very late in the game and equaling the level of effects that we'd achieved with these other companies that we've been working with for longer. And an amazing commitment, and you'll see in the credits the huge number of names, but it was an amazing commitment to be able to get there so quickly.
It's really remarkable how well Rhythm and Hughes and Sony ImageWorks and ILM worked together, and really in the spirit of not competing and just pure and simply, let's see how well good a job we can do and how we can help one another.
Yeah. There's a moment here where we actually switch over to a computer-generated Tilda right there. This moment for me was an interesting one, because I always saw this as very different from your typical ending. One, the hero, Peter, isn't the one who actually kills the villain, which is unusual in itself. But also I didn't want it to seem like a revenge killing. I didn't want it to seem like Aslan was killing the White Witch out of a sense of revenge, so much as a sense of fate, knowing that he had to do it. And that moment, that last little moment between them, is really them both accepting their fate. Aslan knowing that he has to do it, and the White Witch knowing that she is going to die.
Where's Edmund?
And then really this leads us back to the family. And to me, really, the most important theme of the film, which is that of the family, and this family that's been disempowered through being so fragmented and torn apart in the situation they're in World War II, and ultimately are unified and empowered here at the end.
It's true. For me, one of the most impactful shots in the whole movie is just coming up when all four of them hug. It's the first time we see them all hug together, and it really is the climax of the film, the emotional climax for me.
Yeah, very, very proud of William's performance here as well. I think this was just a really stellar moment for him, that you could really sense the emotion and the guilt and the responsibility that he felt for his younger brother. I'm very pleased with the way that in the end each of the kids, each of the Pevensey children, each of our child actors really had their moments in which they could really show their stuff. And I think this is definitely one for William. And then I agree that this is just such a sort of joyous moment now.
And helped immeasurably by Harry Gregson Williams.
Yes. There was a moment in the book where Aslan actually tells Lucy off, and she wants to stay with Edmund rather than go and distribute the potion, and he tells her and says, well, must more people die for Edmund? And I played with putting it in the film, but it just seemed like such a downer at such a victorious moment that Aslan would tell her off. And I really just tried to achieve the same thing just with that look there, that he gives her a stern look and a nod and says, come on, you better get to it. But she does so much more willingly, even though I think you know that she'd rather stay with her brother.
And now we're looking at a scene that one of the few that we didn't shoot in chronological order, yes. And we shot this with them. I guess it was just at the end when we were leaving the North Island.
Yes, William still resents it. Because he thinks he still looks so much younger here, but I think it works fine. But it was, I remember much discussion about it because it was one of the few scenes that we really had to shoot distinctly out of chronological
Remember
order.
how much trouble you had getting him to smile?
I remember how much trouble I had getting him to smile. To one of our makeup ladies telling jokes to him off camera.
I think this was one of our smallest aircraft hangars and one of our smallest sets, really. There's an awful lot of CGI work gone on here to enhance this set.
There is, although it was still a remarkable set. I mean, the marble and everything was pretty remarkable, but it was extended almost in all directions. I think one of my favourite things about the set, though, is the stained glass window.
Yes.
Yeah, in the book it's described as being decorated with peacock feathers, and then you think, well, there's peacock feathers, and then Pauline Baynes has used it as a motif in a big cloth behind the throne. So we took it further and used it in the stained glass window, and it really is very effective.
I think you also really captured that sort of Maxfield Parrish stuff that we looked at early on for sort of the feel and openness and colours of Keir Paravel.
We tried to lighten it up. Instead of being a rather sombre medieval cathedral-like space, we tried to make it a place of celebration and joy. And we used the paintings from someone called Lawrence Alma Tadema and his school,
Yeah.
which were sort of much more Mediterranean in feel and lighter.
Now, I used to have a whole scene there that was a dance, and largely I always sort of felt like the coronation was going to be a more serious event, and after that we'd need some levity and celebration, and the dance would provide that. But when I came down to cutting the film together for the first time, we really found that the coronation itself was quite a celebration and really had a sense of joy, and the dance really felt like just yet another ending. It felt like one beat too many in the ending of the film. And luckily, because we were cutting all the way through production, we were able to make that decision very early on and cut the sequence before spending any money on the visual effects.
And I think to this day, I think it was a very good decision and made sense in terms of also streamlining the ending a little bit. This once again, for me, mirrors the effectiveness of the first scene of these two
Yes.
characters meeting, and for me, it is yet one of the two or three most emotional, and I think it's a wonderful exchange when he tells her that she needs the handkerchief the most.
Yeah, that moment
And
there.
this look here, right?
Yeah, the fact that Georgie doesn't cry,
Yep.
it just holds it back, is a beautifully subtle piece of acting. Of course, we had the challenge for this part of casting the older Pevensies, and I think Gail did a remarkable job of finding adults that looked like our kids would look at an older age, who were all.
I never told you this. The girl who plays the older Lucy is actually Georgie's sister, and I don't think I told you. I virtually promised her the part well before you decided to give it to her. I could have been in hot water with you.
All right, Philip. I'm not as young as I once was.
Yeah, no, it's actually wonderful because Rachel has so many of Georgie's traits, and even though they don't look identical, she really does seem like an older Lucy. I played with the idea for a while of dubbing their voices, certainly with the older kids, of dubbing the older kids' voices, and particularly now that Skander's voice had broken, I thought he could replace Mark Wells' voice there, but it just never quite worked. It never really felt like the voices belonged in the bodies. And by not doing it, it allowed a more interesting transition as they go back through the wardrobe, because you hear their voices change from adults to children again, even though you don't see the transition happening off screen.
Spoon.
We had to wait for autumn to come, and it wouldn't come. And do you remember?
Yes.
And we had to embellish these woodlands. The Greens Department did a huge job on adding more colour to them. And
Went collecting leaves from all over the countryside and sticking them on the trees.
You know, it's interesting, even though we have two of them refer, maybe even three of the names are mentioned, of course, Philip the horse, I suspect that the audience who hasn't read the book probably knows almost from the first shot that they're the older version of the Pevensey kids.
I think it's a lot the casting, the situation, and the crowns.
Crowns, yeah, and the fact there are four of them, and two boys and two girls.
This is a lovely moment with Jim coming up here, and I think this is really where just his sparkle and the youthfulness behind his eyes really come through. It was funny when we shot this because at one point that ball hit Skander right on the head, the cricket ball, which of course is the cricket ball that Edmund hit through the window at the beginning of the movie.
He was in on the Torment Skander game too then.
That wasn't originally the ending. I did actually have this coda, which was the next part coming up, right after that, and really after screening it, I think a lot of people felt, and I came to agree, that we wanted to kind of end the film on that upbeat, try-me moment, but I still loved the bittersweetness of this last piece with Lucy and the Professor. And I think this was a pretty good solution, that we would actually go away from the film for a moment. The audience could go out with that sort of happiness, but then they could still have that sort of sense of possibility, that sort of bittersweet moment that we have coming up, which is always, to me, a really sweet moment, and a piece that we shot very early on. We shot all of the ending right at the beginning of the schedule to make sure the kids really matched and went back to the way we remembered them from the beginning of the film.
This is also, I think, a subtle and effective way of suggesting there might be more to come. So if we end up making another one, we've
spoken like a true producer.
That's right, exactly. You know, like the word subtle means anything in my vocabulary. And then Andrew, actually, I guess it was Sim Evans-Jones, our editor, who had a wonderful idea in this very last shot when they walk away from the wardrobe and it creaks open and you see the light, and it was his idea that we hear the Aslan roar.
Yeah, it's a very nice touch. But I love this last moment with the two of them, and they just both have this sense of hope and possibility, which is so much of what I think that's what the story is about. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for listening through this commentary with us, and thank you, Mark and Roger, for both the commentary and the film.
Thank you both.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk about this film. It was a great honor to be involved, and I'm sure at some point I might even get a little tired of talking about it, but it won't be for a long, long time.